Reginald Blunt. I have a question that school board, potential mayor, law enforcement might want to chime in on. When we talk about parental rights, which is a good thing, but what we're seeing across the nation is that, especially in schools, every now and then you get what I call rogue educators, who no matter what your parental rights are, they kind of push them aside, and they begin to teach the children things that are totally inappropriate, even if the curriculum does not warrant that. As a potential mayor and law, because there are laws on the books right now that talks about what abuse is. And when you're using abusive content on children, pushing content that is not appropriate, then there's some laws that there should be punishment behind that. What I see in our system is there is not really a lot of consequences for educators who go off the rails and try to teach what they want to teach. And I wonder, as leaders, what would you say, especially law enforcement, when they clearly violate laws that are on the books by teaching inappropriate conduct? Because it's not just a school board issue, it can be a law enforcement issue also.
I would ask, obviously I'm going to answer that, but I would like to hear what April has to say too on what DCPS is doing in situations like that. This is what I would tell you, and this is what Rebecca and I have talked about, and how we want to raise our children. Every adult in this room knows when and if someone talks to a minor or a youth inappropriately. It's very, very clear. What is appropriate conversation with some child that's not your child versus having an inappropriate conversation with someone with the child that is not yours. That's not going to be tolerated in the city of Jacksonville. When my children are approaching adulthood, some of them are already adults, I feel like they're out of the vulnerable stage. But when my children were 8, 10, 12, and 14, we watched them like a hawk. We didn't let people try to talk to our children about what their philosophy should be. That was our job as parents. And like we talked about, these incredible teachers that are pouring their lives into these children every day. And I think that government and schools should focus on education, reading, writing, arithmetic, and parents should focus on raising their children and talking to them about private matters and making good decisions. And that's where Rebecca and I stand, and that's where I'm going to stand as mayor. It's inappropriate, and every adult in here knows when that conversation is inappropriate. And that's my belief on it. I'd love to hear what April has to say.
So there's kind of a two-prong situation here, right? So we've got, so the school board, we're in charge of creating policy that needs to be enforced throughout the district. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're following state statute and our policy is in alignment with that. So since a lot of this new legislation has passed over the last year or so, House Bill 1557 and House Bill 7, in regards to what's being taught to our children, we've had to go back and revise policy. Now, it's the individual leadership at those schools that needs to make sure that they're enforcing those policies. And that's something that I've been keeping a watchful eye on. In addition to that, we do have an agreement with the Duval Teachers Union, and they have a disciplinary procedure that they would like to be used. I'm not necessarily in agreement with the current disciplinary actions that are in the Duval Teachers Union agreement because it's almost complete opposite of what the State Department of Education recommends. So we're at a disconnect right now, and I think that it's something that we need to be taking a much closer look at because at the end of the day, we need to be in alignment with what the Florida Department of Education is looking to see throughout the state, and that's our responsibility as a board to go back and look at that agreement and see where we can make changes.
As a public charter, how do you address issues that would be of that matter in your classrooms?
My philosophy is, well, number one, we're not unionized, so we're not beholden to the unions. Number two, my philosophy is I hire slowly and fire fast. So I actually had a teacher just a couple weeks ago that I saw doing some very inappropriate things, not anything that, I mean, I don't want to share it, but it was so upsetting to me. I had to go back to my office and cry because it was that bad. And the next day, she wasn't there anymore. And so that's my thought. If there's anything illegal, we have an obligation, and we have to report it to FDOE. But I'm not going to keep anybody in my buildings that's going to be violating the law or mistreating children.